What do you understand about the way MPAC assesses properties and assigns a tax code to determine how much tax you pay on your residential property? How do you understand the exact process for making a reevaluation or requesting a review of the assessed tax amount? What do you know about the different tax classes? Well, this is the property tax playbook. I'm going to be decoding your tax bill and giving you a explanation of the MPAC's role in the assessment. So what is MPAC and its role in property taxation? What is the current value assessment? What is its significance, for example? What are the 5 primary factors influencing residential property value? How does MPAC use the direct comparison approach when assessing value? And what is the property assessment notice and the property assessment change notice? And what is the provincial-wide assessment update cycle and current postponement status? Welcome to another episode, a brand new episode of helping you build wealth through real estate. Brick by brick. My name is Nico James-Bock. I am a broker and Condo Whiz at Keller Williams Co-Elevation Realty in Toronto. In today's episode, I am giving you the property tax playbook. So it's a description of the process in assessing property values and assigning a tax amount to those properties. So MPAC, which stands for the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, there are 4 stakeholders in the property valuation and tax bracket. They are the provincial government, they are the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, which is MPAC, the municipalities, and obviously the Ontario taxpayer. The provincial government, the Government of Ontario, passes legislation and sets assessment policies through the Assessment Act 1990 that determines the following: the Assessment Corporation's role, assessable and taxable properties, exemptions to property assessments, adjustments for property assessments, valuation dates, assessment notices, and property assessment appeals. These are all the responsibility of the provincial government. Then we have MPAC. MPAC, which completes the classification of property types. So they are the ones that determine the actual types of properties. They conduct current value assessments, or CVAs, of properties, as well as current value assessments are the foundation of Ontario's property tax system. So the CVA is the foundation of the property tax system. So how do the people at MPAC determine values of properties? We also have the municipalities. So there are approximately 444 Ontario municipalities, and they all rely on MPAC's assessment to determine municipal taxes. So each municipality determines its tax rate. They collect property tax to pay for municipal services like police and fire, public transit, and waste management, among others. Finally, we have the Ontario taxpayer. So the property tax payments fund the municipal services that I just mentioned, and the amount of property tax owed is based on the municipality's tax rate. calculated using MPAC's assessed value. So assessing the value of a property. In the case of residential properties, MPAC uses the direct comparison approach, which reviews sales records. They scout listings, MLS listings, as well as they keep their research relevant to the type of property that's being assessed. Assessing value, the most common types of property assessed by MPAC are residential, multi-residential, commercial, industrial, farm, and conservation land. For this episode of the podcast, I will be concentrating on residential as the type of property assessed. This includes all types of residential properties, such as single-family detached or semi-detached, townhomes, condominiums, waterfront properties, so those cottage properties or all year-round properties that have waterfront access, as well as seasonal dwellings, again, cottage or vacation properties without waterfront access. For property classification purposes, this will also include duplexes and properties with up to 6 self-contained units, as they pay property tax at the same residential tax rate as those classes or types of properties mentioned above. So there are 3 types or 3 approaches to evaluating property. I mentioned that MPAC uses the direct comparison approach. So recent sales of comparable properties are analyzed to determine the value of the property being assessed. The income approach is for the analysis of the property's income. So those are multi-residential properties where there are tenants living in the units, as well as office buildings, shopping centers, etc. Then there's the cost approach. So it's a 3-step process to assess a unique property, that being industrial property, commercial non-GTA properties, warehouses, for example, as well as marinas and gravel pits. They all need to be assessed, and the cost approach is used for their assessment. So we'll be concentrating on the direct comparison approach. That's what MPAC uses to determine property value. So 5 common residential value factors. The following factors establish approximately 85% of a residential property's value. So MPAC uses these 5 factors to determine roughly 85% of the property's value. Those 5 factors being location, the lot size, we're talking about detached, semi-detached freehold properties, square footage, age of property, and quality of construction. So where does the remaining 50% of a residential property value lie? Well, MPAC also uses amenities like fireplaces, or if the property has a pool. They also use unique features as a factor, which is a unique feature could be if the property is on a corner lot, a cul-de-sac, or if it has Main Street frontage. Now, these can have either a positive or negative effect on value. They also take secondary structures into consideration, like garages, sheds, or other structures that are actually physically located on the property. Then there are other factors. So in total, MPAC uses approximately 200 factors when determining or assigning an assessment value to a property, including the factors that I mentioned previously. We'll look at freehold properties first. So the key value factors for a freehold property: location. The property's neighborhood and market area affect its value. Market area can be urban, rural, waterfront, or condominium. As well as the neighborhood value can change due to natural boundaries, like a ravine or major streets. Political boundaries as well. Desirability of the area, zoning is a big factor, as well as historical significance, so if there's any heritage value. So that all falls under location. Then we look at square footage. So the size of the property is also an important factor when considering its value. For the purposes of assessment, MPAC determines square footage by using the exterior above grade measurements of the structure to determine the total size. Now, keep in mind, this does not include basements, decks, porches, or garages. So the external perimeter walls of the structure above grade. Next, the age of the property. The age of the property is very, very important. The value of a property is influenced by the age of the structure. Any major renovations or additions to the property may change the overall effective age. So not just when it was built, but if there have been renovations or changes made, it will affect the effective age if these changes and or renovations are significant. Its value can increase if less depreciation is applied against the structure. Then we go to quality of construction. So the property's construction quality is affected by the materials, architecture, and workmanship used to build the home. MPAC has created a classification system, it's called the quality class, to identify different levels of construction quality. If we pass on to condominiums, the factors are similar, but there are a few other factors that are taken into consideration when valuing condominiums. So location, again, is a shared factor. The value depends on whether the condo is in a large urban center. These are analyzed as independent communities. If the condo is, however, in a smaller urban area or rural center, these are clustered together and adjustments are made for the architecture or style of the condo. The square footage, the total square footage of the unit is the primary driver of value. Okay, it is usually taken from plans and commonly calculated from the exterior of the hallway wall to the exterior wall of the unit, to the center point of the common wall between units. That is how square footage is typically determined by MPAC. The age as well is an important factor. The age of the building is taken into consideration. Other factors that are important and that are also taken into consideration are the floor level. So on what floor is the unit found? Typically speaking, units that are found on either the ground floor or on higher elevations are valued at a premium. The higher you go, the higher the value. Number of parking spaces as well. Some have no parking, some have one, some have two. The number of storage lockers, that's also a factor. One of the other factors that are considered when assessing value of a condominium unit. Waterfront properties. So properties that are found or have a waterfront access. These typically are in cottage country or away from urban centers. So once again, we're looking at location. So as you can see, location is an important factor when considering all types of property. This factor could also consider the body of water the property is located adjacent to or on, and the amount of water frontage is also taken into consideration. Shoreline type, so for example, if it's rocky, sandy, or marshland. What is the predominant exposure of the property? So if it's facing north or east, for example. Sanitary services like a septic bed is also taken into consideration. Secondary structures. For example, the property can have a boathouse if it has waterfront exposure. Then they can have a boathouse, they can have a deck, bunkie, and a cabin. There are other factors that MPAC takes into consideration when assessing value of a waterfront property, and these can include seasonal water access or even water access at all. Hydro services, topography is also a consideration. Island versus mainland. What is the water source and the heating type, and if there are fireplaces located in the property. So MPAC uses what is called an assessment cycle. MPAC conducts a province-wide assessment update, every 4 years. So that's their assessment cycle. Assessment updates establish assessed values of properties as of a set valuation date. Okay? The assessed values are used to calculate property tax in the next assessment cycle, so the next 4 years. Property assessments through the end of 2020 continue to be based on January 1st, 2016 current values, okay? Because that was the last time that assessed values were taken into consideration because there was a assessment update postponement in 2020. So from 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, so 2013, 14, 15, and 16 represent one cycle. 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 represent another cycle. However, since the assessment cycle was postponed in 2020, the assessed value as of January 1st, 2016 is still considered the last valuation date. An assessment roll is an annual list of the assessed values of all properties in a municipality. So even though there's an assessment cycle and property values are assessed on a 4-year cycle, assessments take place all year long. And MPAC provides an annual list to each municipality of those assessments. So during non-assessment years, MPAC assesses new home builds, for example, picks up recent renovations and additions that take place, recent sales that have occurred during the year, building permits as well, because building permits trigger a property update or renovation. Requests for reconsideration, which we'll talk about later. Reconsideration is for MPAC to reevaluate the taxes assessed if the property owner requests a reconsideration or a review. MPAC continues to add growth to the assessment roll by assessing homes all year long. When there are changes, a notice of assessment is issued to the homeowner. So not province-wide, obviously, it's just the individual homeowner. If a notice of assessment is issued, as a result of the changes or occurrences that occurred during that took place during the year. So the phase-in process is a process used by MPAC in order to mitigate the changes in value. So property assessments are completed every 4 years, as I mentioned. The increase in value between 2012 and 2016 was divided by 4, because that was the last cycle, and then added to the property's value equally over the next 4 years. So on January 1st, 2012, the owner's home is valued at $200,000, for example. On January 1st, 2016, it was valued at $300,000. That increase of $100,000 is divided by 4, and the increase in value is attributed to the property's value over the next 4 years. And the tax rate will be applied to that value, and that will be the tax increase year over year. So 2017, the $200,000 initial value, if you add $25,000 to that, it's $225,000. Similarly, 2018, if we're looking at the same property, $225,000 from the previous year, you add $25,000 to that, which will give you $250,000, and so on and so forth until 2020. Which the value has reached $275,000 plus $25,000 for the year 2020, which brings the property value at $300,000. Note that the homeowner did not pay property tax on the full 2006 assessed value of the property until the last year of the phase-in, which was 2020. The phase-in provision was introduced to provide taxpayers with some stability and predictability. So MPAC will send you a notice of an assessment notice, and it will indicate to you what the phased-in value will be, which will let you know what the increase in tax will be over the next period. If I take a look at a assessed value of according to MPAC, which is found in land titles and in their own database. If I look at a condominium that was valued in 2016 as $200,000, in 2025 the phased-in assessment is still $200,000 because of the 2020 postponement. So we're seeing that over the next period, MPAC is holding on to the value from the postponement period of 2020, and will now start a new cycle. So 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028. And then we will see what the value is in the next 4 years. There's also value decreases and physical changes. So value decreases are applied immediately by MPAC. Municipalities use a property's phased-in value for current year to calculate property taxes. If there is a value decrease for the property, the new assessed value is applied immediately and all at once in the first year of the next cycle. So property tax will be calculated using the total current value assessment in each of the next 4 years. It is important to note that if there are no physical changes to the property over the next 4 years, then the total current value assessment likely won't change until the next assessment update. So that's why you're not noticing any appreciable increase in taxes. It's simply because of that postponement period. Property changes that affect value. Renovations and upgrades that may affect value include additions, if you add a deck or a swimming pool, or detached garages. So municipalities forward building permits to MPAC, because you must apply for a building permit when you are making such a change. These building permits are forwarded to MPAC, and properties are flagged for inspection. The sale of a property may also trigger an MPAC inspection. So how does a municipality come up with their tax rate? So the tax rate is determined by the municipal cost of services, a total of all of those services. You divide that by the combined value of all properties in the municipality. That gives you the municipal tax rate, which is expressed as a percentage. That property tax, which is in a phased-in assessed value over 4 years, is multiplied by the municipality's property tax rate to come up with the property tax amount expressed in dollars. And that's what you see on your tax bill. So what are the types of property classes? The tax rate used by the municipality to calculate property tax depends on its class, on its property class. So the residential property tax is currently taxed at a 0.93% rate. Commercial occupied is taxed at 2.2%, 2.22%. Commercial vacant is taxed at 1.93%. And farmland is taxed at 0.23%. So if we take a look at the tax bill, taxpayers fund municipal services through property tax payment. It's important to note that the amount of property tax owed by a property owner in Ontario is based on their municipality's property tax rate. The individual tax amounts are determined by multiplying the applicable property tax rate as set by the local municipality by using MPAC's assessed value. What if you want to dispute or you have a disagreement with the assessed value and the amount of taxes that you're paying? So property owners can file a request for reconsideration, an RFR, with MPAC. They file it directly with MPAC at no cost whatsoever. It's either the property owner or the property owner's authorized representative. Requests for reconsideration deadlines are printed on property assessment notices. So once you receive that notice, you will see what the deadline is for filing a reconsideration. Property owners may choose to file a request for reconsideration if they believe a property value is too high, for example. Property data on a notice of assessment is incorrect. Error in the property classification, so the classification type that I mentioned previously, if you feel it's incorrect, that's also a reason to request a reconsideration. Or incorrect property assessment change notice. So if there was a change in the assessment and you feel that was incorrect, that will also be a valid reason to request a reconsideration. Beyond the request for reconsideration, you can appeal the board's decision. So the request for consideration decisions take around 180 days and are mailed to the owners. Okay, so appeals must be filed online along with payment of fees, always fees, within 90 days of receiving MPAC's request for reconsideration decision. The Assessment Review Board will set a commencement date and schedule of events will be provided. Appeals are heard in either a summary proceeding or general proceeding. For non-residential properties, it'll be a general proceeding. Evidence is presented and reviewed at the hearing, and the Assessment Review Board makes a final decision. So that gives you a good overview of MPAC's role in assessing value and determining the property taxes based on the property tax rate. So municipalities determine how much tax you pay based on MPAC's assessment of the property multiplied by the municipal tax rate. Now, I want to talk just briefly about saving your pennies. So there are exemptions, deferrals, and programs out there for individuals. In particular, the seniors and persons with disability property tax exemption through MPAC provides financial relief on a portion of a property's value if improvements were made to a residential home to accommodate a senior age 65 or older, or a person with a disability. This may include renovations or modifications made to an existing residential home, construction of a custom-built home, or use of a temporary garden suite with a property-specific bylaw or order under the Planning Act. Also, the City of Toronto has a Toronto Property, Water, and Solid Waste Relief Program. You can apply online for the 2025 Property Tax, Water, and Solid Waste Relief Program. The deadline to apply for 2025 is October 31st. You can learn more about the program and eligibility by clicking on the link that I will provide. So just some final words: understanding property tax due dates and payment options. So you're able to have authorized payment. You can pay by installments. The impact of major renovations or new construction on your assessment. You have to take those in consideration when you are considering these renovations. Obviously, when you make a renovation or you have a new construction, it brings improved value to a property, and that should be the driving factor, because you always want to improve the value or try to find ways to improve the value of your property, but just to keep it in mind that it will have tax implications. The importance of keeping MPAC updated on property changes. So make sure that you do file or apply for property permits and keep MPAC updated. And regularly reviewing your property assessment notice, because there could be an error. There could be something that you don't agree with, and you have recourse for that. And budgeting for property taxes throughout the year. So don't leave it to the last minute. Properties, you will receive a notice for your interim taxes for the upcoming year and final taxes. So make sure you budget for those. And then resources for further information: MPAC's website, municipal tax departments, for example, and homeowner associations. That wraps up another insightful episode of helping you build wealth through real estate brick by brick. I hope this deep dive into the property tax bill and MPAC assessments have equipped you with the knowledge and the confidence to understand this important aspect of home ownership. Remember, information is power, especially when it comes to your financial future in real estate. This is also useful for those who are currently renting, because eventually the goal should be to own property if you want to improve or build wealth. When you pay rent, you are paying your landlord's mortgage and their property taxes and other expenses. So you might as well do it for your own property. As I mentioned, All of the information can be found in my various social channels. You can easily find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. And you can also always just reach out to me directly. Don't forget to leave a comment if you find this useful. And I encourage you to also share um, the podcast and leave once again a comment if you find it useful. Ciao, ciao.